Good morning, USA. I'm Nora, and you are watching BBT News 1. For watching breaking news, subscribe our channel, and don't forget to click on bell icon. Let's start today news. In the midst of escalating tension, Moscow's strategic bombers soar through the skies while 635 drones darken Ukraine's airspace. Russian missiles intended to strike deep into Ukrainian territory are launched. But what happens next takes everyone by surprise. Before Russia's missiles even reach their targets, Ukraine's response is already wreaking havoc on Russia's heartland. Oil terminals explode, chemical plants burn, and Putin's secure homeland is suddenly under attack. This marks a turning point, a tactical masterpiece that changed everything. What unfolds next isn't just another exchange of fire. It's the unraveling of an empire's illusion of safety. The night of December 23rd marked an unprecedented shift in warfare strategy. Putin's plan was clear. Overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses with 38 missiles and 635 Shahed drones aimed at crippling energy infrastructure across Kiev and western Ukraine. The intensity was staggering. Air raid sirens wailed for hours. In their wake, 3 civilians lost their lives, power grids collapsed, and regions were plunged into darkness, all in sub-zero temperatures. Russia's objective was to freeze Ukraine into submission, but Ukraine's response was both brilliant and calculated. While Russia's focus remained on Ukraine's borders, Ukraine's intelligence services saw a glaring vulnerability. Russia's industrial heartland was wide open. Thousands of kilometers of unprotected industrial targets lay vulnerable to attack. And Ukraine didn't hesitate. As Russian radars tracked targets over Ukraine, Ukrainian drones silently crossed into Russian territory, striking deep behind the front lines. The first major target was the Stavropol petrochemical plant, located hundreds of kilometers from the front lines. This wasn't just any factory. It was Russia's second largest producer of polymers and polyethylene, crucial materials for the country's military-industrial complex. Ukrainian drones hit the plant with surgical precision, destroying critical production units and igniting massive fires. This strike was not just about damaging the present, but about crippling Russia's future military production. Estimates suggest that this single attack could reduce Russia's drone production capacity by 20%, with repercussions that could last for months. But Ukraine's targets were not limited to industrial plants. The next major strike occurred in the Krasnodar region, targeting the Tam-Neftegaz terminal, one of Russia's largest energy export gateways. This terminal plays a vital role in financing Russia's war machine by facilitating the export of oil and LPG. Ukrainian drones hit fuel storage tanks, pipelines, and port infrastructure, severely disrupting Russia's energy logistics. The attack was so effective that Russian authorities had no choice but to acknowledge it, marking a significant blow to Russia's Black Sea energy export operations. Why these targets and why now? The answer lies in Russia's catastrophic mistake made just 11 days earlier. On December 12th, Russia struck the Chent, a civilian Turkish vessel carrying humanitarian aid and commercial cargo in the Koromorsk port. The attack not only targeted Ukraine, but also struck NATO member Turkey and international maritime trade. This blatant act of aggression led to a change in Ukraine's strategy. The message was clear. If Russia targets Ukrainian ports and civilian shipping, Ukraine would retaliate by crippling Russia's Black Sea trade infrastructure and oil export capabilities. This shift in strategy became even more pronounced on December 20th, when Russia launched another missile strike on Odessa port, killing civilians and damaging critical infrastructure. With the loss of innocent lives mounting, Ukraine's response was swift and devastating. The attack on the Tam-Neftegaz terminal on December 23rd was a direct, calculated strike designed to send a message. If Russia threatens Ukraine's ports, Ukraine would target Russia's most valuable energy assets. The implications were profound. Russia's oil exports took a direct hit, and its Black Sea logistics were crippled. Insurance premiums for Russian oil transportation skyrocketed, and global shipping companies began to view Russian ports as war zones. Russia, once a major energy powerhouse, found its key economic gateway in the south reduced to ashes. The narrative of Russia's untouchable homeland began to unravel. The illusion of safety that Putin had promised his people, that life would go on as normal in Moscow, was shattered. Even the heart of Russia's military apparatus, Moscow itself, was not immune. Just days before the missile strikes, a bomb planted in a Russian general's car killed him in front of his home in the capital. The response from Russia's investigative committee was swift, blaming Ukraine. But the larger truth was evident. The Kremlin's high-ranking officials were no longer safe, not even in the capital. Fear had gripped the Russian elite. The destruction continued to spread far beyond the capital, with military supply chains in disarray. In the Perm region, fuel tankers burned at railway stations and military cargo trains were sabotaged. The disruption of these logistics routes sent shockwaves through Russia's ability to sustain its war effort. At the same time, gas stations in Crimea and southern Russia faced shortages, with citizens lining up for hours in freezing temperatures. These shortages were a direct result of Ukraine's precision strikes on Russia's energy infrastructure, leading to a loss of public confidence in the regime. The strategic reality for Russia was stark. The Russian Federation had exposed itself to vulnerability on a scale it hadn't anticipated. Russia's air defense systems, which could cover the front lines, were unable to protect industrial zones and key military infrastructure deep within the country. The situation became a classic example of the problem of defense prioritization. Protect one area and another is left exposed. Russia's military forces were stretched thin, and Ukraine's counterattacks were exploiting these weaknesses with devastating precision. Ukraine's drone campaign in 2025 alone resulted in over $13 billion in losses to Russia's oil sector. Ukrainian strikes were not just sporadic attacks. They were a systematic campaign to destroy Russia's energy infrastructure, sending shockwaves through the global oil market. Russian refineries were processing 6% less oil than the previous year, and the country was forced to ban gasoline exports to cope with domestic shortages. The consequences of Ukraine's strategic strikes were far-reaching, undermining Russia's economic stability and threatening its long-term ability to sustain the war. As December 31st arrived, Ukrainian drones struck Russia's Tuapse oil refinery, one of the country's largest, once again disrupting Russia's energy production. The strike on the Naftogaz terminal was the second major hit in just over a week, further exacerbating the damage to Russia's oil infrastructure. These operations were not just about battlefield gains. They were an economic and diplomatic challenge to Russia's war efforts. Looking at the broader picture, Ukraine's ability to strike deep within Russian territory, targeting critical military and economic infrastructure, is reshaping the strategic calculus of the war. The fact that Russia's heartland, once considered impenetrable, is now under constant threat marks a fundamental shift in modern warfare. Ukraine's successful drone operations demonstrate that a smaller nation defending its own territory can reach deep into the aggressor's homeland and strike at the very core of its military and industrial capabilities. The war is no longer confined to the front lines. It has expanded to the very heart of Russia's economic and military strength. Ukraine has proven that Putin's promise of safety for his people is a myth, and that his war of attrition has transformed into an existential crisis for Russia. As this story unfolds, one thing is certain. Russia's imperial illusion of invulnerability has been shattered, and Ukraine shows no signs of stopping. The balance of power has shifted, and it's a shift that will reverberate for years to come. Stay tuned as this story continues to develop, because what we're witnessing is a game-changing moment in modern warfare, one that could have far-reaching consequences for the future of global security and power dynamics.